Okay, before we get started, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about Fruition. My name is Christina Sinopoli. I'm on the marketing team. And Jeff Pierce is our senior developer. He'll be doing our Advanced CMS Techniques webinar today, and he has a lot of great stuff packed into this 45 minutes to an hour. So let's just get started. So real quick, just a little bit about Fruition. You know, we're growing pretty quickly. We have around over 200 cloud experts right now at Fruition. We've done over 325 ServiceNow implementations. We are a preferred services partner of ServiceNow. We are the only partner that solely focuses just on ServiceNow. So we definitely have a ton of in-house, ServiceNow experts that are here to help you with any kind of question. Definitely know a ton about the tool. And we have over a decade of ITIL and service management experience. And with that, real quick, I'm sure a lot of you, if you're coming to these webinars, are familiar. Our cloud services range, from process design all the way to technology. So we create custom applications on the platform. And we can also help you, just with your overall process of implementing the tool. So with that, I don't want to take any more of Jeff's time up. I will hand you over to him and let him tell you all about Advanced CMS Techniques in all of its glory. Just so everyone knows, really quick, this webinar will be recorded, and you will be notified when the recording is available via email. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy.
Thank you, Christina. Happy Thursday, everybody. My name is Jeff Pierce. I've been with Fruition Partners for 3 years, and I have a little over 6 years in enterprise application experience. And the last 3 years of intense CMS development. That's what it feels like sometimes, but hopefully I can take what I've been through over the past 3 years and share it with you, and you won't have to have so much pain. So in today's webinar, you're going to learn to create custom dynamic dashboards. We're going to make scrolling content that looks really nice, and we're going to make some CMS admin buttons that know how to party. And what do I mean by that? That means that you're going to have really fun time with these, and they're going to make your life a lot easier. This webinar is not intended to teach you basics in any of these here. Going into this with hopefully an understanding that you know a little bit about how CMS works and web development, because we're going to be going right into some mean and nasty stuff. And I'll try to break it down and keep it in very simple terms for you. We'll make it easy. But just so you know, I'm not going to be spending a lot of time explaining how to add, where the add content link is, things like that. Hopefully, these are things that you've learned already or will learn on your own. Okay, let's do some custom dynamic dashboards. So what are these? What am I talking about when I say these? This is just an overview of a record count that you can put on a home page or really on any page, and it's just a nice, pretty way to give a user a quick overview of how many open or closed records of one type or another that they have, and then you can make these clickable so that they go right to the page, and they can see what the 14 issues they are behind there or requests. So how do you make one of these? How do you put this on a CMS page? The first thing that we're going to do, step one, is you have to add a new dynamic block to your page. This is one of those things that, it's very basic to do, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time doing it, but I'll walk through it. You can watch me do it. So essentially what we'll do is we're going to add a new dynamic block to the page we want it on. We're going to name it, save it, position it, and then we're going to start adding some code to it. So I have a site here that I'm working with. You can go ahead and follow up. I'm sorry, I almost forgot before we begin. If you look in the chat window, you'll see that I posted a a URL, and it came through kind of funny. I'm not really sure why. But essentially, if you go to fruition03.servicenow.com/CMS, there is a file of, a zip file of resources that you can see, or that you can download. And you can do this right now, or you can do it later. But it contains all the code that we'll be using, any images that we use. So just come to this URL here that I posted. Don't do CMS twice on the end, just do it once. And there's a link there, Advanced CMS Techniques. Click that, it downloads a zip file. And so all the code that I refer to in this webinar and any images that are used are all in that zip file for you to use and refer to. All right. Sorry, I almost overlooked that. So I'll give you a second to do that if you're downloading that now and want to follow along, or just grab it later. It might be easier just to watch me right now. So I have a site that I'm working with here, this TN site. So I'm going to open up the page.
Welcome to GoToWebinar, Web Events Made Easy.
Add content. And we'll wait for this. New dynamic content. I'm going to put it right there in the middle. Okay, I'm going to use the pencil to open that block. I'm going to name it. We're going to call this our dashboard. We'll just put home page at the end. You know, just a CMS best practice is to always name these something that's very legible, very clear. You know, use capitalization. And it's also always good to, you know, begin it with whatever your site name is. So I'll put TN at the beginning there. Just because you may have to go digging for this later, and it's going to be much easier to find if it's named appropriately. So don't be lazy about that. Okay. So here we have it. We have our new dynamic content block. It's just sitting there empty on the page. You know, I'm going to leave it there at the top of the page. So I'm not going to position it anywhere else. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to start adding code to this. What do we need this block to do? Well, we need it to do two things. One, we want it to look nice, and two, we want it to provide a live count of some kind of filtered query, right? You know, the open incidents that are currently assigned to a user, open request items that are assigned to the user. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put in some glide aggregate queries to do those record lookups and perform the counts and assign those counts to variables. So here is the dynamic dashboard. I'm going to open up that code. So here's this first section that I'm referring to. I'm just going to copy this. We're going to open up the block. And this stuff, that needs to stay there because that's going to, you know, tell the browser that this is Jellycode, and you know, so these are those need to stay there. But here I pasted in the new code, and I'm going to go through this really quickly and explain what this is. So first off, we're just assigning a variable for the open issues. We're going to use this later on so that we can print the number of open issues anywhere on the page. This right here is the meat of our glide aggregate. Glide aggregate. So you see, first we set up a query on the incident table. This is the name of the table we're going to. Then we're adding some query conditions here. I'm only grabbing active incidents. Then I have a couple of OR conditions. The caller ID needs to be the current logged on user, or the opened by field needs to be the current logged on user. The next line is where we perform the aggregate and we count the number of records that we just filtered. Uh, and then we assign that number. So we've counted the number and we assign it to open issues here. So then we repeat basically the same thing with request. You can see that the query changes slightly. The name of the table is now SCREC item. We're still gathering only active items. But here we're just going for request.requested_for is the current logged on user. And then we count them up. All right, so there is our evaluation that we're doing here. Now we need to get some HTML on the page so that we can print this somehow. So what we're going to do with the HTML is we're going to use div containers to create some layout and get this positioned on the page properly. So if, just real quickly, if you are new to this, HTML is kind of like the framework of a house. It's the 2x4s and the cement and the architecture. Whereas CSS is more like the finish, the paint on the walls, the window treatments, things like that. Although CSS does, is very powerful with sizing, creating dimensions, and has a lot of great layout properties. But essentially, what we're doing right here is just creating some HTML markup, creating some structure so that we have a title, which is just going to say status. Here, actually, let me let's get these in the page here. Oh, I have it up already. So here's our HTML. We're going to paste that in here. So I've created a containing div. This is going to, act as a box that I can put on the page, and everything's going to go inside of it. There's our title, status. Now here's a link that links to the open incident page. Now we're not going to create these pages in the webinar here, that's something that's assumed you know how to do already. Create some pages and put content on them. So, but here's what's the most important thing right here is the variable that we've calculated up here. We assigned the number of open incidents to this variable. So down here is where we print it then. We say, and then here's the label for it, open issues. And you can see in this HTML structure I've got some classes assigned and some IDs because that's going to help me style this. I haven't done any kind of styling in this if you've noticed. This is just straight divs and your tags. So we need to give this some style. Here is all the CSS that's going to make this very pretty. As you can see, I have this just the CSS in with the rest of this stuff in these style tags. You can do that. I prefer not to. I prefer instead to take that and put it in a style sheet where it belongs. So let me do that quickly here. So just another quick best practice is that anytime you start your new site, go into your theme for your site and create a new style sheet for all your custom styles. So any changes that you do, you put it all in here so it's nice and easy to keep track of. And if you go in and you change something in one of these other style sheets, just comment it out and then go put your new code or your new CSS in your custom style sheet. Just a good way to keep it organized. All right, so as you can see, I just pasted this CSS in here. And so what it does is just providing dimensions and styles and colors, font sizes, layout properties, things like that to all those elements that I had in the HTML. So I'm going to update. Let's go take a look at our site now. Kind of curious to see what it looks like. There's nothing there. Why not? So this is our home page that we're dealing with. Edit page. Home page dashboard. Oh, we must have forgotten to save that. Okay, so what we did is we had all this, our evaluation and our HTML markup. Let's paste that in there. Save it. Okay, so now we have this saved. Refresh the page here. Oh, look at that. So it's as easy as that. Now, one step that we were missing here that we didn't do is we didn't go through the step of uploading the image, which I already have it uploaded. But essentially, you can see here in the CSS, we're calling out the background of this to be _background. So that's what your image needs to be named in your image library, _background. So, you know, we'll just quickly review the steps that we went through to do that. Is we added a new content block to the page, which was this. You know, started out quite empty when we started. We just performed a couple of simple glide aggregate queries. I know, simple might be an understatement for some of us. And then we created some markup to contain that. And then we went through all that CSS in a style sheet. And that gives us this. And so what we have now are some nice little links. See there? One record. It says I have 8 open requests. There they are, 8 open requests. All right. Let's see if we have any questions here about. We'll take a quick moment and field any questions that you have specifically about this dynamic dashboard. If there aren't any questions, if you have a question, go ahead and put it right into the questions box there in the webinar control panel, and we'll see it there. Okay, let's see here. Have we used any front-end frameworks, for example, Bootstrap, for layout? I have not used anything like that. I have heard of some people experimenting with stuff like that, but you know, in my experience, it's just so easy to go in here and develop right on the platform that I've never really had any use case to go outside and do anything else. So, yeah, sorry, I don't really have much input on that question. Thank you, though. Okay, so we have a request to show the steps again. I can walk through that really quickly. I mean, we'll also have this, this PowerPoint presentation available to you afterwards in PDF format. Okay, we have another question. The pages you were referring to are for when you click on the open issues, correct? Right. So, so we've been dealing with really just one main page right now, which is this home page, but I did refer to these other pages. So if I click on one open issue here, it takes me to this page, Open Incidents, where it shows me a list of my open issues. So we're not creating this page in this webinar today. It's assumed that you already know how to make this, or you know, these are pretty simple to do. They're out of the box. You know, and likewise, open requests would link to a different page. So you can be as creative as you want with this. You can have as many different counts as you want, do it in any kind of layout and format. The point of this is to show you how easy it is just to, you know, get some data from your database and put it on your screen in a creative way. So let's see here, we have another question. Is there a precedence order with the CSS? If you always had to comment out existing styles, if your custom styles had the same name. There is a precedence order with the style sheets. You can give them an order. Just for organization's sake, I always comment it out. I don't have them duplicated anywhere. Otherwise, it just gets too hard to find them. Keep it all in the same place. Okay. Let's move on here. Let's see where we leave off. Quick 15-second break. Let's speed that up to about a 5-second break. We're all good. Let's go. What we're doing now, custom scrolling content. What's this good for? You can alert the users of critical news. You know, sometimes you have people who will ask for horizontal scrollers. Those things, I think they're terrible. They take so long to read. Don't ever consider those. Just always do a horizontal scroller. Always do a vertical scroller, because that way you can read the whole sentence right away. And then you can always speed up or slow down the speed of this too. We'll get into that. And then the nice thing is get data from any table. It doesn't just have to be like a knowledge-based news article. It can be an incident. It could be a problem. It could be anything. So, what's our first step? Add a new dynamic content block to the page. We're going to do the same exact thing we did last time. So, sound familiar? Let's go do that. We're going to pull up our page again. This page. This is it right here, what we're dealing with, the home page. Edit page. All right, so we already have our dashboard there. We're going to add another content block. New dynamic content block. We're going to add that right there, right above the other one. Open that up. Let's name it. And remember, use a name that makes sense. Be organized. And we'll call this, we'll just call it a news scroller. Okay. What other notes do we have here? That's it for now. Let's just submit this. Okay, we can position it differently right now if we want, just by scrolling it around. If you want to put it below the status or above it, I'm going to leave it above for now. What's next? Okay, so just like in the last one, we're going to create an evaluate section because first we need to determine what data we're dealing with. And if you notice, one difference about this, in the last one, our evaluate tags were G:"evaluate. This time it's G2 evaluate. And the reason for that is Jelly script it does 2 phases upon loading. So you can choose to perform operations in the first phase or the second phase. And this time we're going and retrieving text. And sometimes text can come back with special characters that throw things out of whack. So that's why we're doing this in the second phase. So the jelly loads once, and then it's second time loading, it goes and it's going to go and do this query and bring back the data that we're looking for. So don't let that confuse you too much. There's more information about it there in the wiki. Don't get hung up on that right now. But let's add this section to our new dynamic content block. So this is going to be the scrolling content. Let's open that up. That's this first section right there. Okay, we're going to leave our jelly tags intact. Okay, and since we're doing 2-phase jelly script here, we need to check this box. 2-phase. Don't forget. And it's not hard, or it's not hard to remember, because if you forget to check that, it'll kind of regurgitate all of your page, and you'll know it. You can just come back and click 2-phase, and it'll look all right. So we'll save that. That's what I forgot to do last time. I forgot to save. Okay. So let's walk you through this real quick. So just like in the last example, we start out with a variable. We're going to count news articles. Actually, we're not just counting, we're going to actually be retrieving these too. But our purpose here isn't to count. Our main purpose is to query and retrieve the records. So I'm doing a glide record instead of a glide aggregate. And we're doing the KB knowledge table. We're using this handy little thing to add an active query. We're adding to that query. We're going to say bring back only the things that have the topic of news. Now query, and then this line says count the number of records that came back. All right, so now we've retrieved all the data that we want to work with. What do we do now? We do some awesome jelly scripting. We've already been doing some jelly scripting, but this is where it gets a little more functional and fun, and you know, you can be more creative on the page. So let's open this up here. So this is a little piece that we're going to add next. This first J section. And what this does, you can see it's like an if tag. And the test to this, you know, it's saying if our test is true, then go ahead and consider the code within the tags. And what's our test? News articles equals 0. So here we counted the number of of active news articles. So if there's no news articles, we're just going to print no news. We don't want people to think that there's an empty block. And so what's next? More even awesomer jelly, which I know awesomer is not a word. That's this section. Let's paste that in and take a little tour what that does. Did my screen just get smaller? Weird. Okay. So what are we doing there? Same thing. Another if. And this time the test is if news articles is greater than 0. And in that case, we're going to be calling a UI macro that's there out of box. It's called scrollable area. And then we have some HTML and more jelly inside here. I'm not going to kill you with all the details here because essentially this is copied from an out-of-box, some out-of-box objects and just changed slightly. But essentially what it's doing is, you know, this is the crux right here, is up here we did the query. You know, we went and said what news articles we want to retrieve. Down here we say, okay, now while we have each one of those, loop through each one and print it. So that's what we're doing. So if you wanted to do incidents rather than knowledge articles, you know, change your query up here to go to the incident table and, you know, do an appropriate query. And then you can change this to, you know, maybe you just want to show the number, you know, the number and this state. You know, then you can just change this to number rather than short description. So, you know, you can easily use this stuff as a template to go and get whatever information you want, and then you can get creative with how to put it on the page. And then you see down here at the bottom, we have a view all news link. So if there are news articles, and if there's a lot of them, you don't have to wait for them to all scroll. It'll just take you to a page where you can see a static list of them. And just like in the last example, I'm not going to show you how to make this page. This is easy to do, and you probably have one that exists out of box, and it's probably called today underscore, like today's underscore news. In my case, though, it's just news. All right, let's save it. What is our next step? We need to make some styles. Right now it doesn't look like anything. Let's actually go look at it, see what it's doing right now. Yeah, see, look, it's doing nothing. I mean, there's stuff there which is cool. It's doing something for sure, but it looks like nothing. So we have all these styles that we're going to go put in the style sheet to make that look like something. And again, just like the last time, you can put it right in the dynamic block in some style tags like this, but it's better practice to go put it in your style sheets. So let's go find our style sheets. TN custom styles, that's what I'm working with here. And it's good even, you know, within your style sheet, organize it like this. You know, so I'm commenting out, so this is going to be our new scroller CSS. Paste all my stuff. You know, let's go ahead and put that at the top of this here. This was our dashboard. Yeah, so just stay organized. It helps you in the long run big time. So just take it through a trip here. You know, we're assigning some widths, some heights. We have a background image that we're going to use, borders, padding, you know, all the stuff that is going to make this look nice rather than just black and white text on a page. That's all here. Let's update. Let's refresh. Still nothing. Why is that? Do we, let's see here. What's next in our PowerPoint? Oh, you know what? We got a couple more steps. Now, it may not, you may not be able to tell by looking at this now, but there are a couple of modifications that we want to make to the out-of-box macro that is actually causing this content to scroll. You know, one of the changes is just fixing an Internet Explorer bug, which is a harmless change to make and should be done regardless if you're going to be using this. The other ones, you know, change the height and top properties to help with this specific example that we're using. But the caution is that this is a system macro. You know, this is an object that we're not creating new. This is already there. So if you're already using scrolling content on one of your home pages or something, you know, don't go changing the height and top properties like we're going to do. You know, go ahead and do, you know, fix the IE bug, and I'll walk through what these are. Yeah, because, you know, this is a system macro, so if you change it in one place, it's going to be changed elsewhere. So what do we have to do? Let's pull that up, this scrollable areas script. Okay. So that's, like I said, that's an out-of-box macro. UI macros, go to scrollable area. And actually, I've already changed it here in this instance, but the changes we made, or the changes I made, that you can make too, actually, let me clarify this. The customizations that I'm about to make only apply if you want a scrolling area this large. If you want one that's only about 100 pixels high, like this, you know, approximately this, then don't make any, you know, or I'm trying to highlight just this. You know, if you want just a short one, then don't make these customizations. But what I did is I changed the height to 180 pixels. That makes the actual scrolling area or region larger. And then I changed the top property right down here to 100 pixels because since I had such a larger window, I wanted it to begin scrolling at a lower position so that when the page loads, it starts at the bottom rather than at the top. So that's the reason I made these two little things here. Like I said, that's very specific to my design that I'm doing. The other one that you can do and that I suggest doing, because in older versions of Internet Explorer, what happens is the scrolling box, your content actually scrolls outside of the box, and it just looks ugly, and it doesn't, it looks broken, and it is broken. So what you have to do there is just make sure that these two properties, overflow hidden and position relative, exist at on both divs. See, here's the first div, and then here's the second div. So see that? I've got them both declared there. Out of box, it's just this. One has position relative, and the other one has overflow hidden. So they both need to be at both divs. So that'll fix it for old versions of Internet Explorer. Okay, we don't need to spend any more time on this scroll area. Let's what is next here? Make sure we upload our supporting images. Okay, so let's make sure we've done that. Which I don't think I have this one up. So this one's called, what is this one? News background PNG. Okay, we have an image now. Let's see. Refresh. Still nothing. Why could that be? Do we have any data to display? Well, actually in our case, yes, we do have some data to display, but let's take a look at what's doing this real quick. Just like I said, if we had news articles, they'll show up here because we did that query. But let's what were to happen if we were to deactivate those two news articles? See, so this is just my knowledge base articles here. These are the two news topics. So now they're false. No news is all it says. Okay, but let's put those back on. So you can see, though, the point there is you can have any admin maintain the content of this. They don't have to touch CMS. It's just as their knowledge base is maintained, it shows up here. Okay, so why is there still nothing? Why is there no styles? Wah, wah, wah. Where's our pretty picture? That's because this time I decided to use something else, which I didn't have to use, but it's something good to know that it's there, and that's called frames. So what a frame is doing is just like it sounds. It's the ability to put a frame around an object so that you can easily manipulate the layout of it and other properties. So we're going to go create a new frame, and as you can see, the code that we're going to put in this frame is super, super easy. This is it right here. So let's go create a frame. New frame. We're going to call this one TN underscore news scroller. And what was that? We're going to just create it. So this is our frame right here. We're going to create a div, and I'm going to give it any name that I want. What did I say that I was going to call it, though? Alerts container. It's a total arbitrary name. It could be news container. It could be, point is that I'm calling it that because I'm going to refer to that later with some CSS. Okay, close the div container, and inside it, this is the variable that's used to say, okay, anything that you put this frame around, that's where the content's going to go, right inside this alerts container. Submit. Okay. Let's find that dynamic block that we were just dealing with, news scroller. Okay, so this is, where I did my evaluation and my HTML markup and stuff. Well, now I can come to this field right there, frame, and choose TN News Scroller. So now by doing this, I'm putting this div that I just created around it. And let me tell you what the, here, let me open up another tab here, and I'll tell you the significance of this. It might become clear. So here's our news scroller right here, and see right here where we assigned the background image. We assigned it to an ID called alerts container. Well, we don't have that ID anywhere here in this dynamic content block. You know, so that's why that image wasn't showing up. That's why we weren't getting the formatting we wanted, because the element alerts container didn't exist until we created this frame, and there it is. Now we have an alerts container. Now there will be one on the page. So if I refresh now, oh man, that looks good. So you can use frames, and then the thing about that frame is it's reusable. You know, if you have a very common universal background or frame that you want to apply to many different blocks, you can assign that frame to as many number of blocks as you want. So that's pretty darn handy. And of course, there's the View All News. That takes you to the list, you know, assuming that you know how to make this page. You click on an item, takes you to that article. You know, one thing I forgot to point out in here, though, oops, not there, in the dynamic block. Is right here. This is the link that is being formulated so that when you click on one of those news items, this is where it goes. So just be sure you change this ESS to whatever your site is. You know, mine's TN. Oh, and if you do happen to change this to another table, then you got to update this stuff too. You have to create a page that's going to support that record. Update this table name here. Yeah, so there's some other little changes, but you know, this is a good template to start with. Okay, so yeah, bam, there we go. We've got a nice looking news scroller. Okay, let's we have limited time left, and the really another cool thing to show you. So let's try to field some questions just very quickly here. Let's see, do we have any questions on this? Let's see if they're sure how you're displaying the number of openers. Okay, well, we covered that one previously. We'll distribute the slideshows. The question was, can you please share how you are displaying the number of open issues and requests on the dashboard? So that you'll just have to refer to the slideshow and we distribute for that. We covered that one already. Oh, good question. When do you use square brackets and when do you use curly brackets? For example, here, right there, you see we're using some square brackets. That's because this is two-phase JavaScript. Whenever you're doing two-phase, you use square brackets. Whenever you're doing single-phase, like we were doing in the home page dashboard, you use curly brackets. So it's very simple. See, we're not using two-phase there, so we do curly brackets. Okay, next question. Instead of modifying the out-of-box macro, could you create a copy of the scrollable area UI macro and call that in your dynamic content JavaScript? Yes, you could do that. There are a couple of additional steps. It's not just as easy as creating a new one. Let's see, where was... Let me find that. News scroller. Yeah. So there are other ways of calling any macro that you want. So it isn't just as easy as doing this. You know, like if I were to create my own, you know, scrollable area pizza. You know, of course, I'd have to close it down here then. Then I could go create a macro called that. So yeah, I technically wouldn't have to touch the out-of-box one. But it isn't, like I said, it isn't just as easy as doing this. There's another slightly different method of calling a custom macro. Or you can call another dynamic block, dynamic content block. Okay. Why did your status have a frame but the new scroller didn't? Good question. I could have done either one either way. I mainly did the second one with a frame to illustrate that you could. And that you know, it's a nice little way to add additional HTML containers to elements. So yeah, we didn't have to do one with a frame, one without. I chose to do it that way. Okay. Now let's try to move quickly here. 13-second break, 2-second meditation. We're going to skip both, and we're going to do these CMS admin buttons. All right, so what are these good for? I don't know why. Oh, there we go. Because we're going to, here, you know, let's just skip this. And although the cat with the lizard, I hope you're not offended. Okay, so what are we going to do? I'm going to skip telling you what they do, and we're just going to make them, and I'm going to show you what they do. So we're going to start out the same way we did the others. We're going to create a new dynamic content block and add it to the page. So let's do that. You know, really, I would have a shortcut to my home page if I was going to be working with this much, so I wouldn't have to keep doing this. Work smarter, not harder. Okay, add content. New dynamic content block. This one doesn't really matter where I put it. I'm going to put it right at the top here. All right, I'm going to open that up. I'm going to call this one CMS admin buttons. See, these are going to hopefully just make your day big time. Let's, where are those? Here's the script for it. All right. First thing we're going to do is we're going to create a div container in here, which I could just use a frame. Could use a frame, you know, and put this container in there, but I'm not going to. All right, and just quickly, section by section here. The first one, this is a link that will open the edit page view of whatever page you're currently looking at. If it sounds confusing, don't worry, it'll be very clear when I demonstrate this. So you can see this is all it is. It's just this this URL, and here I have a good graphic for this. I can't not show it here. Right here. So this first section, I'm using this variable current_page.getID. So current page, yeah, it's a glide object. You can use that, and you can get all sorts of cool stuff with it. Try using current page.getTitle or .getParentPage. You know, experiment with that. It's very powerful. Okay, next step is this section. What does this do? On click refresh page. Well, we're going to have a script later on for refresh page that'll do just that, but that's going to be the link for it. This next one, this one is going to open up our content theme. Look at this right here. We're missing some stuff. We got to put our the sysid of our site's content theme in there. So let's do that real quickly. Themes. Here it is. TN. This is my site. It's content theme. Copy sysid. There it is. Got it. And put it in. Okay. So now this link is going to open up my theme. So what I'm doing is I'm making really quick access to very common CMS functions. Okay, the next one is it's going to call a script called refresh CSS, or a function. I'm sorry, function refresh CSS, and then we'll have one that goes to the classic UI, and then Oh, I don't know what this one does. We'll have to find out. Okay, next thing we have is these scripts to support some of these functions. So refresh page, refresh CSS. That's what we're going to we need to make sure our supporting scripts are in there. So now this is just straight web development here. Refresh page, you know, this is just JavaScript to refresh the page. Refresh CSS. This is going to refresh your CSS without having to reload your page. So that's pretty cool. If you just made some CSS changes, you can refresh your CSS without, you know, having to, you know, go through a whole click path, to, you know, to test your thing again. All right, okay, this is not two-phase jelly scripting, so I'm just going to add it the way it is. Okay, it's not really going to look like much until we add our styles. So here's all the CSS. Now it's going to be a lot of CSS because I want to get these and put these out of the way. I don't want to have these buttons like right in the middle of the screen. So let's put those in there and let's get a title for that. CMS admin buttons. Okay, there we are. We got all our styles in there. Update. Oh, one more thing we need to do to this, to our content block, CMS admin buttons. We don't want just anybody seeing this block. It should only be for admins. So we're going to make this block conditional, and the condition is gs.hasRole admin. So now, if you don't have the role admin, this dynamic content block will not even appear or be considered on the page. Cool. All right, so what did that do for us? Let's refresh our page. Wow, look at all those buttons on the side here. This is what it added. See these buttons here down along the side? So the significance of this is I can browse my site as a user, you know, see the view that they get, and be able to jump right into essential elements like edit page, click it, bang. Now I can jump right in and go right to any element on the page instead of having to go back to the classic UI and finding the module in the left nav and being all confused and stuff. Now, if I, I want to change this link right here, today's news, I want to change the label. So edit page. Boom, I just jump right into it. Couldn't be easier. So that's really nice. Refresh page does just what it says. Of course, if you're a jerk, you can put little messages in there. You know, those are really that hard to do. Command R. You know, edit CSS. Like I said, that's going to open up my theme, so I can go right into my styles. Super easy, and it opens all this in a new tab here. Refresh CSS. I explained that already. You know, it just refreshes the CSS. Classic UI opens up your page in a new tab. I mean your classic UI in a new tab here. And what's this one do? Well, let's see here. Let's finish out our presentation here. Make sure we hit everything. Yeah. So these were all the sections that we added. We went through all this. These were the styles that we added to our style sheet. Okay, so this is what we made, except ours were black. So now you have the power. You know, you can use those buttons to do just what I showed you. You know, make CMS admin tasks much easier, or you can add your own buttons. You know, add buttons that go to, you know, to open a specific kind of request or something. You know, you can get very creative with them. But if you happen to be a little evil, then you can add another dynamic content block to your page. And that would be this one, or surprise. So now, check this out. I'm going to use my edit page link to add a new content block. Add content. Wasn't that easy? I don't have to go to my site anymore. Okay, I'm going to add it down here. Open this up. We'll just call this one a surprise. All right, I'm not going to explain to you. Oops, I doubled it up. There we go. I'm not going to explain what everything is there. Okay, refresh the page. There you go. So, like I said, you can get very creative with this stuff. Do anything you want, pretty much. It's JavaScript is very powerful. Let's see, what are we missing here? We got all that. All right, so let me field any questions on what I just did there. Let's see, will the slide deck be made available? Yes, we'll be making that available in PDF format. And also, all the scripts that I've been referring to, those were all available at, actually there's a couple links in there that you could use that were posted. But we'll post that again. There's a zip file that you can download that has all the scripts in it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for attending this webinar. I hope that you were able to learn something. You can see the madness that I've been dealing with the last 3 years, but I've enjoyed it very much. It's a lot of fun. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to us. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, we will be glad to hear from you. So again, thank you very much for your time, and that will conclude our webinar on advanced CMS techniques. Thank you very much.